Welcome to the video on marketing objectives and strategy, which is a part of marketing planning. Marketing objectives and marketing strategy is the third step in the overall marketing planning process. We will start this video with focusing on marketing objectives, and then we will continue looking at marketing strategy. Well, marketing objectives are reached by undertaking a market overview, marketing audit, and summarizing it all into SWOT analysis, as it is in the previous step number 2 within the overall marketing planning process. And we have recorded and published video on this. It is in the first instance a means of achieving wider corporate objectives. So it is important to ensure that the marketing objectives are aligned with the company's wider objectives. There are two types of marketing objectives: strategic objectives and tactical objectives. We will now discuss each. Strategic marketing objectives or strategic objectives. Malcolm McDonald, who has published a lot in marketing and in particular marketing planning literature, he says that marketing objectives are set in terms of two perspectives. One is markets, as you can see in the slide, and second is product. They will be either new or existing. The Answers matrix, also referred to as the growth matrix, so that's another term used for the Answers matrix, suggests strategies for a company to grow. And this matrix can be called upon to set marketing objectives. So marketing objectives will be set in terms of the above growth strategies. Those objectives need to be specific. Usually, numbers will be attached to them. For example, if your objective is product development, then specific objective needs to be formulated. For example, to develop those many smartphones for that company. Now, strategic objectives, as we said, are set in terms of products and markets. Okay, and they are set in two perspectives: new or existing. So in total, there are 4 alternatives possible. Let's start with market penetration. This is the strategy when company grow by increasing sales of current products or existing products to current markets or existing markets without changing the product. There are a couple of different tactics. One of them is to target new customers. For example, IKEA targeting newly divorced. The other strategy is increasing loyalty among existing customers. For example, getting them to use product more often, reducing numbers of switching customers, and so forth. So you can see that we don't really modify the products, and we don't really go and look after the new market. So we we go with existing products to the existing market. The other strategy is called market development. It is the strategy to grow a company or organization by identifying and selling current products into new markets. So, for example, if you remember Harley Davidson's strategy to target female customers. So the product the same. We haven't changed motorbikes. We haven't changed even design of them to tailor more to the woman customers, if you like. But we started targeting new audience, new target market. So instead of focusing on male customers, we started focusing on females. The other strategy, the third one, is called product development. This is the strategy when company grows by offering new products or modifications to existing products. For example, banks are constantly working on new product developments. Have you noticed how many more services are we offering today? Different mortgages, different loans, new and different deposits, and so forth. Or you can think about other companies, like classic example, Apple or Samsung, when they are developing new products. And finally, the final strategy is called diversification. This is when we develop new products for the new market. It is considered to be the riskiest strategy. For example, think about Google Cars. So this is a fairly new product to the company, and it is a new market, because just because someone's used Google search engine in the past doesn't mean they will be confident to drive this they're basically a car without drivers. Here you might think, well, are there any strategies missing? Well, companies must not only develop strategies for growing the business portfolios, but also strategies for downsizing them at times. There are many reasons for a company to abandon products or services from a market. For example, a firm entered the market where it lacks experience, or the market environment have changed, making some products less profitable. Do you remember BlackBerry? And finally, some products simply age and vanish from the market. So these are the 4 strategies, and that's how you can set strategic marketing objectives. And here we have tactical marketing objectives or tactical objectives, where we are planning more on the product level rather than the growth strategies for the company, as we discussed in the previous slide. So strategic objectives for each product need to be agreed. And now we are beginning of planning at the product level. That's why we call them tactical objectives. One of the tools we can use is something called BCG matrix, or Boston Consultancy Group matrix. This is probably one of the best known portfolio planning methods, which was developed by the Boston Consulting Group, and it's considered to be classic today. However, some companies, and I dare to say quite a few, just simply won't use it. Still, I want you to understand the principle of this because it is important, and also see how you can make things better, make it more useful for you. So on the vertical axis, market growth rate provides a measure of market attractiveness. So that's one of the dimensions. We'll look at the market growth. On the horizontal axis, relative market share, as you can see, serves as a measure of company strength in the market. The growth share matrix defines 4 types of businesses of products or products. Let's start with stars. They are high growth, high share businesses or products. They often need heavy investment to finance their growth. Eventually, they will slow down and turn into cash cows. There are several examples I can provide for stars, such as smartphones, tablets, variety of organic products, maybe vegan products, and so forth. Now, the other example is cash cow. These are low growth, high share businesses or products. They need less investment to hold the market share. They produce a lot of cash. There are many food products that would be considered in this area. For example, Coca-Cola, Lay's tea, Toyota car, Hellmann's mayo, McDonald's, Kit Kat, iPod, and so forth. So if you look at, for example, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, you can see they are not doing very well in the brand evaluation leagues in general. Yes, they are still among the top companies. In some way, they are among top 10. Others, they dropped from the top 10, but still quite high up. And simply it's because we are not growing as much as other companies, like technology companies are growing by far quicker than them. So here you can see these are cash cows. We generate a lot of cash, but we are not in the high market growth. Okay, we still have a relative market share. Now the other category is called question marks. They are low share business units in high growth markets. They require a lot of cash to hold the share, let alone increase it. Management should think hard about which question marks should try to build into stars and which should be simply phased out. They are very common to smartphone producers, for example, who are not as successful as Samsung or Apple, for example, right? So the market growth rate is high, but they may not have a high market share. And finally, we have something called dogs. They are low growth, low share business or products. They may generate enough cash to maintain themselves, but do not promise to be large sources of cash. You can think of different examples, but perhaps one of them, say, Nestle's Crunch Bar. Okay, so these are some examples. So you have 4 options here. With the stars, you can build sales and its share. It's typical for stars. However, it is important to remember that building sales and market share are not the only feasible objectives. You can hold, typical for cash flow, for cash cows. Invest just enough to hold the market share. It may be suitable under certain conditions, for example, financial constraints and weak economy. You can harvest, typical for dogs, milking its short-term cash flow regardless of the long-term effect. Harvesting basically is when sales or market share allowed to fall, but profit margins are maximized and may be profitable in some cases. And finally, digest or divest, typical for question marks, dogs, or even stars at times. Selling it or phasing it out and using the resources elsewhere. It can be the logical and the rational outcome in some cases. To summarize, strategic and tactical objectives define where the business and its products intend to go in the future. Here we looked at the tactical objectives. In the previous slide, we looked at the strategic objectives. Marketing strategy, which is still number 3 step in the overall marketing planning process, and that's something that follows from the formulation of marketing objectives. So the strategic plan defines the company's overall mission and objectives. Marketing strategy focuses on how objectives can be accomplished. Marketing strategy, in other words, can be referred to as the marketing logic or the marketing brain. That's how important it is. The more formal definition is it is marketing logic by which organization creates customer value and achieves profitable relationships. The marketing strategy essentially involves 2 key questions. Number 1, which customers to serve, and we do this through something called segmentation and targeting. And number 2, how will we create value for them? And this is something we do through differentiation and positioning. So now let's briefly discuss all those steps: segmentation, targeting, differentiation, and positioning. Just one note before we discuss this. In some of the textbooks, differentiation is actually highlighted as one of the steps, but in other textbooks we simply go to segmentation, targeting, and positioning, and kind of not talk about differentiation because we assume that differentiation is included as part of positioning. And that's something I will do here as well. I will focus more on segmentation, targeting, and positioning, but when I talk about positioning, differentiation will be included. So segmentation, targeting, and positioning is the key part of the marketing strategy. So first of all, we start with market segmentation. This is dividing the market into distinct groups of buyers who have different needs, wants, characteristics, or behaviors, and who might require separate products and or marketing programs. So that's one of the reasons we do segmentation, because we think we would be able to address them using different marketing programs. The next step is targeting. Market targeting is evaluating each market segment's attractiveness and selecting one or more segments to enter. It can be derived as a result from SWOT analysis and the setting of marketing objectives. So if you have segmented the market, for example, you are Ryanair and you are segmenting the market, and you get segmented based on two big areas, like business travelers and non-business travelers, so individual travelers. And then within individual travelers, you can create sub-segments. For example, bargain hunters, or those who travel often, or those who are looking for convenience, or those who are looking for particular destinations, and so forth. So what I'm trying to suggest here is that you may have identified many different segments. You may have identified 5 or 10 different segments. However, when it comes to targeting, you would usually choose 1 or maybe 2. So you would choose fewer amount of segments to enter. Because when you target, it's important that you are able to target them successfully. So in other words, one requirement is that market is attractive, and another requirement is that you as a business strong and capable in targeting that market. So targeting is concerned with fewer segments. Okay, now before we go to positioning, the step that is like a silent step would be differentiation, which is actually differentiating the market offering to create superior customer value. So how would you differentiate, say, products or services? And you would also consider competitor targets. Okay, so make sure you stand out from them. And finally, you have positioning. Once you've done with segmentation and targeting, you go to the final stage, positioning, which is arranging for a product to occupy a clear, distinctive, and desirable place relative to competing products in the minds of target customers. Some of the most successful methods are actually built upon some combination of the following advantages. For example, being better, like perhaps Virgin Atlantic or BMW, being faster, like McDonald's or Zara, being cheaper, like Ryanair or Aldi, or being closer, for example, establishing long-term relationships with customers like Marks and Spencer's in the UK, or being more natural, like Whole Foods and so forth. So this is how you can achieve combination of advantages when it comes to positioning. But essentially, segmentation, targeting, and positioning is the part or at the heart of the marketing strategy. Thank you, and I hope it was useful.